Maggie Gallant, welcome to Jewish Money Matters. I'm so excited to have you on the show. We have a mutual friend in common, Joyce Azria. I was fascinated by you when you came to do an expert guest session on our Mastermind Maximize. It was fabulous, and I'm so grateful that you're here today.
I am so happy to be here.
I was bragging about you in the introduction, what will be the introduction to this episode coming out soon. But just to set the stage a little bit for the audience, you're the founder of Superjuice. You have won numerous accolades and recognitions for your work in PR and branding, marketing. Your clients are brands that we're all familiar with, mostly in great part thanks to you and your work and your team's work. You're a proud Jewish woman, a mother. So delighted to have you. I want to start, Maggie, with, you know, in Superjuice, you talk about taking pride in working only with brands that you're obsessed with. And that's a very deliberate word that you
Yes.
use. And I want
Yeah.
to talk about that soon, but maybe I'll even start first with the obsession with PR, perhaps with
Yeah.
marketing, with brand storytelling. How did Maggie get to become Maggie, the brand storyteller? Was there a clear path from childhood, a circuitous path? Like, take us down memory lane and try to connect the dot for us a little bit.
Sure. Well, I was a musical theater kid.
Oh
So I
my.
grew up in the theater. And I always say that I think everything I know about life, I learned in the theater. I learned about showing up. I learned about being a part of a company.
Mm.
The importance of hard work, talent, being in front of an audience, everything. And I went to school at GW, George Washington in DC, on a scholarship for theater. And while I was there, I always loved singing, dancing, acting. But they say that if you can do something else, if you don't have to be an actress, don't. Um,
Uh-huh.
and what they mean by that is it's a really tough life. There's no trajectory that you can definitely see that you have any control over, really. I remember I went to New York during college and I was in front of a casting agent and he was like, "Yeah, that was a great monologue, but like, what age would you play? Like, you're too old to be a teenager and you're too young to be a mom." And like, I walked away from that audition being like, okay, this is the weirdest industry. Like, it's almost, I have no age now.
Right.
Like, I cannot build a career off of something that makes no sense. And truthfully, I wanted to hold on to that love of theater and performance. And I knew that if I was, pounding the pavement, going to cattle calls, losing auditions for ridiculous reasons, I would start to hate this thing that had always been one of the most important things in my life. So
Right.
at that time, too, I took an internship with USA Weekend magazine. It no longer exists. But I worked for the entertainment editor. And
Uh-huh.
there I started writing about actors and musicians and pop culture icons for what was called the Who's News page. And I
Hmm.
would talk to publicists all day, and publicists being the person behind the person that schedules their interviews and gets them press, gets them into USA Weekend, which was the weekend magazine of USA Today. And they weren't that excited about their clients. These publicists
Oh,
that I spoke to were all very lovely, but they weren't very good at pitching their clients. Like, we were a weekly magazine, but we were also what's called long lead.
hmm.
So we had to book interviews sometimes like 6 weeks in advance of it being published. And it was very well known to most people and most PR people, but I had quite a few publicists that be like, my client has an album dropping on Tuesday, so we'd love to do an interview with you this week to run this weekend. And I was like, I just feel like I could do this better. Like, I
Right.
have this passion for pop culture. And the other passion I always had was talking, and telling people about shows I was into, beauty products that I loved, drinks that I couldn't get enough of. And I always felt like, listen, it's not curing cancer. It's not, finding peace in the Middle East. However, I love representing and talking about brands and TV shows that it makes people's life better for that
Yeah.
moment. They can
Yeah.
lose themselves in a reality show. They can, enjoy a piece of candy from Dylan's Candy Bar. So fast forward to I graduated at 21. Um,
Hmm.
and after a short stint at an entertainment PR firm where I was mostly handling PR for new movies that were coming out, um, 9/11 hit. Um,
Mm.
and I I had recently left the PR agency that I was working for, maybe like a couple weeks before. So I was freelancing from my apartment in Manhattan. And because I had left that job because I sort of had this strange, and often I do speak to a lot of women who come to this point in their career where they're like a little bit overqualified for the position, but like it's sort of like a bad fit. I
Hmm.
had at that point, I had published bylines at USA Weekend for like 3 years of college. And I was answering the phone for 6 people. People in the office were smoking cigarettes. I was choking at my desk. My parents came to visit me, and I could tell like they were depressed at like where I was in my life. And they also lacked what I later like just kept going back to the word was obsession. They weren't excited about the movies they were talking about. Like,
That's so
and
sad.
it was sad. It was very sad. And I was poor, I was a poor publicist,
Yeah.
in my early 20s. And so I left and I was freelancing for USA Weekend. I continued writing and being on the journalism side because I could make more in a 10-minute celebrity interview than I could for a week as a, entertainment publicist.
Right.
And then when September 11th hit, I had lost a friend who had gone to college with me at George Washington University. He was very close to a man I was dating for many years at the time. And he really he resonated, his life resonated with me. And I was very much inspired by his, for lack of for his joie de vivre, really.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
would take himself out for a steak dinner on Friday night, even when we were in college. And I was like, I want to really enjoy the hours that I work because I really have always loved every job I've had. So then I started my own PR agency at 21.
Ooh.
And and then it was later acquired by Rogers and Cowan, which is one of the largest entertainment PR agencies in the country. And then I left to found Superjuice.
Wait. There's so much to unpack right there. How does one go from I'm starving in New York City, right? Making like just hustling just to get by to I start my own PR firm at 21 and it gets acquired.
Well, great question. I think sometimes a little bit of ignorance is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was this 21-year-old
Right.
person who um really didn't know what obstacles there were in starting
Right.
a business. And
I love it.
so um sometimes it's better not to know all
Mm-hmm.
of the things that could happen to you if you start a
Mm-hmm.
business. And at that point in my life, it was either start something because I interviewed at many PR firms and I wasn't finding what I was looking to create, which was, they had these big PR firms that were very corporate and research driven. And I have no idea what the actual results were they delivered for clients. Or they had these like boutique small firms where like, these publicists would act like to their clients, you're lucky to even work with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were sloppy, they didn't have like the attention to detail. So I was like, maybe I'll just create my own. And back then I
Mm-hmm.
called it Spotlight Communications, which was, sort of an ode to my background in theater and what it felt like to be in front of an audience and to get their attention. And I started out of my apartment.
I love it.
I, had that 21-year-old confidence where I called up like Fortune 500 companies and I was like, I'm the demographic you're trying to reach. I could be your publicist. I'll charge you less than, my competitors. Hire me and, you'll be excited about it. And, quickly thereafter, I signed Cliff Bars, the nutrition bars.
Yes.
I started working with Lifetime Television.
That is crazy. This is awesome.
Well, I think it's what happens when, whether it's brands or individuals, when you're working in my area of business, the enthusiasm and the
Yes.
understanding of the product itself is more than half the battle because
Mm-hmm.
you are this brand's cheerleader and
Mm-hmm.
they can feel that I understand their
Right.
points of difference, like what makes them different, why should people buy them, why should we tune into this show? And they can trust that I take that level of enthusiasm when I'm talking to reporters or
Yeah.
influencers, etc.
Yeah, yeah. And even in that, you know what they're hearing? They're hearing, oh, she knows about me. She cares about me as a brand. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
now it turns into, I'm here to serve you. I get you. I want to do for you. And that's it's just such a, in business, we sometimes lose that human side. I think we
Yes.
talked about this once, you and I, right? And that's what you're showing. I'm enthusiastic. I'm here to, I get you. I'm your demographic. I like, oh, she does get me.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. It's so important. So let's go to, okay, so you get acquired, then you start Superjuice. Um, let's talk about now the obsession with your clients' brands, okay? That enthusiasm. What are the juicy elements that you're drawn to and obsessed with when you curate the brands that you represent? What is in place already there when a client walks in the door that makes you say obsessed? I want to work with them.
It's a great question. When I think of the word obsession, I
Hmm.
think of, you're thinking about it even after you've left the room. You know,
Hmm.
you're talking about it even when you're off the clock, although there is
Right.
a clock when you're a publicist, it's 24 hours a day. But it's something you naturally think about, and and that you feel like people need to know about it.
Hmm.
And that people, you're like honored to talk about it. I mean, I have done trial and error in my career. I've been doing this now for 20 something years. And I remember years ago, I was approached by a heavy metal record label. And I hate heavy metal music. Like, I don't understand it. I hate it. It gives me like, I was like, I don't even know why you want to meet with me. And he was the head of marketing at the time. And he said, listen, I want somebody like you who can, promote, this, it was an anniversary album, and try to convert people like you into liking it.
Oh
I was
gosh.
like, that's something I've never tried before. And I will never do again. Because I'm just not good at it. Like, I think in business, if you try to do everything, you're good at nothing.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there are areas that I could read about, talk about 20, you could wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to want to talk about it.
Hmm.
And I think it's an important part of the mission of Superjuice because it drives the culture of the
Yeah.
people who work here. So I don't hire people that I have ever had to say, I'm going to need you to stay later, or I'm going to need you to work a little harder on this. That's in their DNA, that
Hmm.
they want to be energized when they go to work. They like the client roster. They're into it also. They care just as much about the output and what we bring to the clients that I do.
Hmm.
And it keeps like an energy level and a creativity going. But it's not just about culture. It's not just warm and fuzzy. It allows us to have better results than anyone.
Right. Right.
There are, most of my competitors are not as selective. So, and you can see it. You know, that that enthusiasm for a brand, and that allows us to come up with ideas, like, because we are the
Hmm.
consumer, but also because we can't stop thinking about it. And then when we
Hmm.
start talking about it to a friend, they mention something else, and then we end up bringing to the table more creative ideas. And so the better job you do for one client, that's pretty much how we built our entire you know client base, has been word of mouth.
It
Which,
sounds like it sounds like such a dream career. I love it.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I think I I I don't know many people who love their job as much as I
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
And I used to get in trouble with HR people at Rogers and Cowan because, at the time the buzzword was work-life balance.
Oh.
That was what the millennials wanted to talk about in job
Right.
interviews. And I would say I have none. And the HR people would get very nervous and they, be like, oh my God, Maggie, this is so. But what I meant by that was I grew up in an industry and most of my good friends are journalists, other publicists. Like it has helped me create a life. I used to go to parties and see venues, and that was my social life. Like I don't feel the need to clock out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't bother my team members ever when I know they're with their families or they're with their friends. Like I don't bother them just to bother them, and typically my clients don't either. But
Mm-hmm.
but it has. I don't have that very strong division between what is my job and what is my personal life.
Right.
My daughter loves knowing about, clients on my roster, and she goes into her classroom and starts talking about it. So I have no work-life balance, but it really is a dream career. It really is.
Yeah, it's like my work is my playground.
It is. I mean, I'm talking about candy, jewelry, TV shows. I mean, I have friends that are like crunching numbers and doing
Right.
all kinds of very smart academic things. But I think I'm having more fun doing it.
So speaking about the business itself, I often I wonder, let's talk about the marketing ROI as business owners. I remember one time being on the marketing side and having, the CEO being so skeptical about pushing this particular PR firm and this particular campaign or whatever. And I was in this very awkward position, right? Because the CEO is always looking for the ROI and will often question the efforts that are made in terms of publicity and branding. Are there going to be real drivers for sale? Like, I don't just want the recognition, I want the sales, right? Show me the money.
Yeah.
So is this where having an amazing brand story comes in?
Mhm. It does, but I think that and measuring success, that ROI is something that all PR and marketing people do struggle with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And one of my shorter answers to that is, what is the price of not having it? Like,
mm,
think of the brands that have no marketing. You can't even name, you don't know what they are. Like, how can you buy them if you don't know what they are?
right.
And so I mean, most of my brands are at the intersection of pop culture and lifestyle. So they should be a part of the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm,
There should be a cultural relevancy. And that's where, when you talk about a brand story, there has to be a powerful brand story.
mm-hmm.
For example, one of our newest clients is out of the UK. It's called Surrey, which is short for Sustainable Rituals. And they have created the world's first sustainable sonic toothbrush.
Ooh.
And when I heard about it, I just went bonkers. Like, I grew up, my father was a dentist. I grew up with periodontal magazines on my coffee table. And I thought there was a reason that I endured having my father give out toothbrushes on Halloween. This is what, and I tried the toothbrush. It's beautiful. It's a brand that is not only bringing sustainability to oral care, which is responsible for millions of pounds of waste every year in landfills, but it's bringing high design to oral care, which oral care as a category hasn't seen major innovation in decades.
Right.
The founders are these dads that are really passionate about making the world a better place for their
That's so
young kids.
cute.
And
I
I'm like,
love
I
it.
could tell this brand story all day, every
Right.
day.
Right.
And I feel like I'm giving a gift to, whether it's an influencer or a reporter. I'm like, I am doing you a favor by telling you about this brand. And that's where the results come from. So you
Right.
can do like a big, big stunt. You can spend a fortune. But ultimately, if you have a really good brand story, you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
stunts, I never believe in stunts for stunt's sake. I believe in perfecting that brand story um, as what should drive the whole thing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So perfecting that brand story. So then what are those key elements that you want to see in each of your brand stories that are going to position that brand for that growth that we want?
I would say the elements need to include an inspiring founder backstory.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't only have to be a woman. It doesn't only have to be minority owned. But I want to believe that the person who did this, there was a reason that they went through what they went through. And especially if the founder has like setbacks that they endured, and what made them keep going was the passion for this product.
Right.
So we have to have a really powerful founder story. And it needs to be the best in its category.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can't be a skincare brand that's like, you know, the lesser version of a better product. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it has to be the best, and I have to know why it's the best, and I have to
Mm-hmm.
believe that it's the best. And I would also say there have to be other areas of the marketing mix other than just PR. Um, if they are not, you know, strong on social, if they're not growing their retail footprint, like
Mm-hmm.
the business has to be growing, because this is sort of a funny thing to mention on your particular podcast, but there's an expression in PR Jesus. And what that means is a business that's not doing well
Right.
or doesn't know how to grow is like, let's bring on PR. And they will
Mm-hmm.
have us on the Today Show. When I first started, it was get us on Oprah. That was the joke. Was like every brand was like, I have a brilliant idea. Get me on Oprah. And PR alone doesn't save a business.
Right.
It elevates a business. So it's two different things.
Right. There have to be solid business fundamentals there.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
to be continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
The sales side has to be really important. They have to be innovating, creating new products. So
Love
it's
that.
there's quite a few boxes we have to check to make
Mm-hmm.
sure not only is it something we're excited about representing, but that we can really deliver on ROI.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love those three. So powerful founder story, best in its category, and there has to be strong business fundamentals that the business is. This is great. So you just mentioned, they don't have social media, they don't have this, they don't have that. It reminded me, I want to ask the question about being in all the places. I think we maybe talked about this at some point, and you may have even used, the question is, sometimes do we have to be in all the outlets, right? And I think when we talked about this, you may have mentioned maybe even the story of Dylan from Dylan's Candy Bar. I can't remember. There was one type of media that she didn't particularly enjoy, so you switched to something else. Maybe it was long form articles. Tell us more about this a little, because as business owners, I think there's often this big pressure that you have to be in all the places,
Yeah.
and that might not be the case.
It's not the case. And
Mm-hmm.
when I meet with prospective clients and they're like, how many outlets can you get me in? I'm like, how quickly can I get out of this meeting? Because
Gotcha.
being
Right.
everywhere is not a strategy at all.
Uh-huh.
What we do is we look at each of our founders, for example, when we're looking at that pillar of the brand, like how do we amplify the founder story? Because that is a very much a driver, especially with millennials and Gen Z consumers. They want that founder, they want to feel good, they want conscious, consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at like, if I have two male co-founders, for example, should they always do press together? And if a media outlet doesn't want them both together, maybe we pass. Like we look at each media outlet, and not just each media outlet, but the actual journalist doing the interview.
Mm.
So I worked with a reality star, over a decade ago, and reality stars often have that mindset that you're talking about. I need to be everywhere. I want to be in every single outlet. And if my castmate is doing this, I want to be doing that. But one of the most important things was when I identified who I would have interview this woman, I had to make sure she had the same sense of humor. For
Mm.
example, if she interviewed her and was not going to get the snarky humor, then it was going to be a negative article. And I had seen it happen with her previous publicist. I would see stories come out and they were awful. And they made her very much not likable. And so
Wow.
part of having people buy into that founder story is not just picking the right outlet and being selective about that outlet, but also the person doing the interview.
Oh,
It has to
wow.
be
I love
it's
this.
like a matchmaking.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this.
a moment where they're going to really enjoy and that person's going to be a fan.
It's funny. You remind me, I have a big pet peeve because I get a lot of proposals. People, these agencies pitch me guests for the show all the time. And it's like, seriously? Like, have you even taken like one look at what my show is about? Who's my audience? What do I, it's like, why are they paying you?
I
Like, I get
know.
so frustrated. Why are people paying you? You don't even know how to do your job. It's like, totally like, I don't know, like to give you a crazy example. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to go into it, but you know what I mean. It's like,
Those are fun stories though to tell.
yes, yes. Um, and I guess my next question is about the the let me see how I word this because it's a little bit of a tension that I sometimes hear entrepreneurs deal with. And that is the how much of the brand story is what the business owner wants the brand to represent versus what we hear the audience, the customer, their wants and their needs, and what we're hearing, that feedback that's coming. Like, how do those two things ideally live together? Can they coexist seamlessly? Is there ever tension between them? And if so, how does one resolve it?
That's a really smart question. I would say I don't particularly find that I have that issue.
Right.
Typically, the founders that I work with have done so much market research that they've either had to do this to get Series A funding to get to the level that the brand is.
Right.
They know their consumer.
Right.
Now, there are media outlets, for example, that may not cover a brand. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they focus on brands that are more budget friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Their readers are more, they know their readers just like the brand knows, what it stands for. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that happens. Although when we have brands that are more what we call aspirational, a higher price point, we won't place it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan's Candy Bar is a great example. There are plenty of media outlets that would not cover an aspirational lifestyle candy brand in a way that would make sense for their readers or for who actually shops at Dylan's Candy Bar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a consumer that will go to Costco and get a heaping bag of candy, and then there's a different consumer that wants the experience, knows Dylan's as like an icon of New York City, that loves the packaging, that knows like what goes into the creation of the art form that is Dylan's Candy Bar.
Right.
So sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect between the
Mm-hmm.
media outlets, because certainly if we have a brand, especially now with the way media outlets work with affiliate sales, et cetera, and monetizing listicles and product reviews, et cetera, the more outlets you have your product in, the more potential you have to drive traffic, technically. But I
Right.
don't believe in that, because
Right.
I believe you capture the consumers where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go everywhere, because if
Mm-hmm.
you want to maintain a certain aspirational, you know, brand, and that's part of like what's made it different, the point of difference from, everything else in the category, you don't need to appear in media outlets that, aren't all
Right.
about the
Mhm.
aspirational lifestyle.
Right. And that goes back to what you said before, that being everywhere is not a strategy.
It's not a
It's
strategy.
not a strategy. So, Maggie, so many in my audience in the show have a complicated story with money. Complicated is maybe a funny way of putting it, but it could be rocky. It's a bit of a love-hate affair. And for many, it's outright like a negative story, right? Can we have fun a little bit and put your marketing hat on and maybe for a minute try to see if can you give us like a deliciously appealing, Dylan's Candy Bar type story for money, for wealth, for abundance? Can we create a beautiful, positive story that might help people say, I can get behind that?
Well, the funny thing is, I grew up in the South. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm now based again.
Uh-huh.
And culturally, you don't talk about money. That is very much not done.
Hmm.
That is very uncouth. And so I had that in my head as I grew up. And then when I was 21 and a business owner, and I would get somebody who was like interested in being a client, and I would start sweating and shaking, thinking about like asking them for money. It felt so gross. Um, and I met with a money coach, and it
Good
was
for
somebody
you.
who actually, especially, most of her clients were women who had the phobia that I had about
Yeah.
talking about money. And she was like, the whole point of your job is to make money.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Business needs to make money. That's why it's a
right.
business.
And I have always focused on the joy of what I do. And I was like, right, because otherwise everything would be a vacation or,
Hmm.
of course. And so once I just stopped saying, and she also would correct me because in conversations, I would continue the sentence and repeat to others, I hate talking about money. I hate talking about money. And when you keep saying that to other
Okay.
people, your body, your mind, you start to believe it. And
Hmm.
so I cut that out and I started saying, yeah, I quote what we're worth and
Good.
I detail out what we're worth. And I think um, talking about money actually, to your point, can be really fun
Hmm.
because
It is.
you figure out. Sometimes clients come to me with a certain budget, and they're like, "What can you do within this?" And so then we have fun being like, "Okay, if we have this, and we know we need to deliver X, what are the things that we can do for them within these parameters?" Or if they say, "How much would you charge for this particular project?" There is fun in being like, okay, let's say it's $100 per month, and this is what you get for $100. Because
Hmm.
what's important to remember is you're talking about money with somebody who then needs to justify that cost.
Hmm.
So if you do the job for them and give them the talking points they need, if that person's ever call it, why are you spending so much on your PR agency? They have the bullets right there. This is
Right.
what goes into it. And so it's really just about, it's not a random number when you're talking about money. It's a very well thought out number. And showing them that this is what you get for this. And sometimes you can have fun with being like, you paid this. And actually, this is the value of what you've gotten. And there's
Hmm.
different ways of finding that out and helping that person to make them feel better about the money that they're spending.
Hmm. I love that you share that personal piece about, your own money story. No, I so appreciate it. And the fact that you went, I mean, this is such a good example for listeners that you actually went to a coach to help you with this, because I always tell people, and I work a lot with women, the money story piece as an entrepreneur, if you're having issues in that area and in your relationship with money, it's going to come to bite you because like we said before, your business needs to make money. You're going to have to quote, you're going to have to send an invoice, you're going to have to negotiate, like you're going to talk about money. And so we got to get past this fear.
Yeah, and I very much believe that we as women need to stop each other from when we hear each other say, I hate talking about money. I don't want to ask for this. Like, just be a good friend to another woman and say, cut it out.
Good
And the
for you.
best way to look at it as men don't have this problem. I have never,
Correct.
in the 20 something years I've been doing this, I have never heard a man say, I'm nervous about asking for a raise. It's
Hmm.
always the women. And is that the reason there's a pay gap? Not the only one. But if we can start acting more like men do, where they walk into a room and say, I'm worth this, they don't even always back it up.
Hmm. Right.
Um, but we need to have that confidence and
Hmm.
stop each other from apologizing for asking for what we're worth.
Yeah. Yes. Music to my ears. Music to my ears. And going back to the fun and the enjoyment. Yes, I love my work. Right. I'm good at my work, and it feels like play. But I also have a responsibility to myself and everybody else around me to contribute, and that demands dollars. So it's yeah, it's amazing. So now that we got a little bit personal, maybe tell us a little bit, what were some of the lessons, Maggie, growing up that you learned in your home, in your parents' home, or maybe, yeah, in your childhood that maybe informed some of, the way you are in adulthood with money? Any lessons that stand out as either good lessons or lessons that you did away with?
I'm smiling because I want to answer you and I don't want to tear up, but I should tell you I lost my mom 6 months ago.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
And I
sorry.
lost my mom suddenly. And I lost my mom 1 month before Superjuice officially became totally mine when I took it independent as an agency. And it was something that had been in the works for about a year and a half, and she was very excited. We had planned an Independence Day dinner, me, my husband, and my mom and dad. And so, so talking about the lessons that I had growing up is a little bit challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I will say both of them always taught me that do what you love and the money will follow. And it
Wow.
always has. If you're
Wow.
if you're solely focused on the money, um, it's not going to follow. And I've never seen that not to be true.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that was really what drove my career
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah, I see it now as I heard your story, and it's such an important lesson, and so many of us didn't have it, by the way, because it was all about the money,
Yeah.
and I wish more people would understand. And by the way, it is a Jewish lesson. Like I teach people, I show them from the different books, like from the Gate of Trust and things. Like it just says,
Mm.
God gave you certain talents, certain passions, certain inclination towards things. Like you said, I love to talk about things that I'm excited about. I loved, right? It was just so natural to you to do what you do. That's why you excel at it. And that's where God wants you to be. He didn't give it to you for nothing. And then you put yourself there and he's like, okay, that's the perfect vehicle for you so that I can send you the money. It's just
Mhm.
like so beautiful. And yet so many of us miss it. And then we end up in this like career crisis. Like, oh, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. And life's too
Right.
short for that.
Well, exactly. Life's too short for that. So I think we have to really pass that on to our kids. It seems
I
like your
totally
parents,
agree.
yeah, it seems like your parents did a great job. So let's wrap it up with what I call Jewish Money Matters fill in the blanks, okay? And this is
Yeah.
the part of the show where I'll give you an open-ended statement and you'll finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. Game?
Game.
Amazing. Okay, when I give tzedakah, I like to give to,
Jewish causes.
oh, good for you. Any particular, like anything, any things that like are pull your
Um,
heart?
I like to support my daughter. My daughter goes to Jewish day school and it's
Mm-hmm.
an amazing community. And so I think a Jewish education starting really young and being
Yeah,
part of who she knows she is and knowing she has a community around her for the rest of her life. I just don't think there's anything more
so
important.
important. So
Um,
important.
and of course, anything that supports Israel and strengthening
Yes,
Israel.
yes, yes, yes. Good for you. I'd love to make more money because
I like nice things.
good for you. And
I
we
have a
should.
handbag problem.
And we should like nice things. I have a friend who always tells me, you know, God made the temple. Like if we go back in history, in Jewish history, the temple was a fine place. There was gold and tapestry. Things in Judaism, things are meant to be beautiful and
Yes,
refined. Like there's
yes,
no shame in that.
yes. I have no shame.
Something I wish I learned about money growing up is,
It's okay to talk about it.
oof, I love it. See, Maggie, you're the perfect guest.
You are a
Money.
great host.
Huh?
You're a great host and a
Oh,
great
thank you.
conversation leader. So
Thank
you
you.
make it very easy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. See, I'm in my element too, right? This is
You
what I love
are.
to
You're
do.
doing what you love. I love it. And you can feel it. There's no faking that.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Money, spiritual or physical? What do you think?
Wow.
Or is it both? Both is also allowed. I'm on
I
the
would
both
say
camp. I'm on the both camp.
I would say both. I think on this, you immediately think of the physical, but I think in terms of the spiritual, um, part of the joy in getting to a certain part of your career is having the ability to give to tzedakah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and it's it makes you whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it certainly is both. And also it's supporting your family, which
Yep.
is, in my role as a mother,
Yep.
you need money to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to that Jewish education, right? It's investing in those values, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes with a price tag, but it's very valuable. It is. It's very important. Something I splurge on unapologetically. I heard handbags there. Is there anything else?
I would say handbags. I do have a Chanel collection that I have acquired at major milestones in my life.
Oh,
I
that's nice.
typically commemorate major moments
That's
with a
nice.
Chanel bag. So I have a collection that one day will be my daughter's.
Very cool. Very cool. Maggie, spender or saver?
I'm the spender. My husband is the saver.
Okay, you
I
balance each
don't
other out.
like the B word in my house very much.
The
Meaning
B word, the
budget.
budget.
I don't like it.
We call it plan. If it makes you feel better, we also don't use that budget. We call it plan. What's
I
in
like
the
that better. I like that better.
In fact, we call it family happiness plan if you want.
I like that.
Right? You
That's
like it?
great.
You can take it. You
See,
can
you're
take it.
PRing
Yeah, there
a
you go.
budget.
Yeah, exactly. We're creating a brand, a real brand story around this, a good one, right? This
Yes.
has to do with the joy of our family
Yes.
happiness plan.
It's
Very
true.
nice. Today, I'm grateful for.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. The first thing, honestly, that popped into my mind, probably because we were talking about my childhood, was having two parents that believed in me, you know, even
Yeah.
when I didn't necessarily believe in myself. And,
Yeah.
the other part of it is finding my, but share it. Like I
Mhm.
found the love of my life and we have created a really wonderful life together. And my husband actually plays a very significant role in Superjuice. Part of taking my company independent was meaning I was going to have to take on legal, business affairs, HR. We have employees in 4 states. So what are the taxes
Wow.
I have to pay, and my husband does all of that so that I can,
Wow.
do what I love to do, and focus on the things that I love to do and the things that I'm good at, because those are not things I'm good at. And he
That's
does all of
huge.
those things. So we're a really nice complement to each other.
That's huge. It's so important, so beautiful when our spouses can be a supportive partner in our business endeavors. It's so beautiful. It's huge. I have to say I'm grateful to my husband. He's also I couldn't do what I do without him. And
I love that.
I hope I reciprocate. Sometimes I feel like I'm not as supportive and enthusiastic about his projects, and I probably should be more. Okay, so that's a lesson to me. All right. So finally, I'm Maggie Gallant, and I believe Jewish money matters because
Oh, I believe that Jewish money matters. I think for 2 reasons. One, so that we can support each other, and give to Jewish causes. But I also think that our success, both financially, professionally, it moves us forward in terms of how people see Jewish people. Like when you see the success, whether it's in Hollywood or in business, like you're really helping the entire community, and not just with connections, but in the perception of Jewish people as a group of people that prioritize education,
yeah,
hard work,
yep.
scrappiness. So, and all of those things lead to more money. And
Yeah.
so that's why we've been as successful as we have, is because we have worked so hard and the money has followed.
Yes, yes, I love that answer. Thank you, Maggie Gallant. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for the work that you do, and for all the brands that you bring out to the world and make sure that we know about. And I'm excited to check out that toothbrush. Like really,
The Surrey toothbrush, it just launched here in the US.
I'm excited
It's
to
on
check it out.
Goop and Erewhon and Amazon, and try Surrey.com.
Maggie, thank you so much. You're a delight. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.